Hey there, I'm Lindsay with Off the Beaten Hook. This video tutorial is a supplement to my Amigurumi Crochet pattern for Ingrid the Octopus. You will be able to accomplish almost the whole pattern by watching this video, but there are some more self-explanatory parts that I just don't take the time to get into here. So either way, you will definitely need a copy of the written pattern. And if you don't have it yet, you can find the links to the pattern in the description box below, as well as any other relevant articles or videos I mention in this tutorial. So let's get to it. All right, so I have just finished crocheting Ingrid's head. She looks a little bit like a hot air balloon right now. So let's give her some eyes and bring her to life. All right, so I am using 12mm black safety eyes. I'm gonna take a couple pins and just pin where I'm going to put them. So the eyes get put in between rounds 32 and 33. So just start from round 1 on the top and count down 32 rows and place your pin in between rows 32 and 33. Okay, there is my first eye. And then they're going to be spaced by about 10 inches in between. I'm sorry, not 10 inches, 10 stitches. So here is where I just placed the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Did I just go up by a row? Nope. All right, so that's where the eyes are gonna go. You can certainly put them in, and if you don't like how they look, you want them further apart or closer together, then go for it. But you're just gonna push the safety eyes in through where you just put those pins. Okay, let's put them in before we put the backs on, just to make sure we like how it looks. And they'll look a little bit more spaced out once you get her all stuffed. So they do look a little bit closer than the pictures right now. So yeah, that is where her eyes are gonna go. Let's go ahead and put the backs on. There they are. All right, so now we are going to embroider on her eyelids. So we are going to take a short length of the purple yarn, or I'm sorry, whatever color you're using, and thread it into your tapestry needle. And we are going to start by bringing the needle out from the inside. So we're gonna go underneath and come outside of this stitch that's exactly halfway down her eye. So it's in that same row that you inserted the eye. So it's gonna go over the top, and then another part of it's gonna go under the bottom. So go ahead and put that tapestry needle in through the stitch from inside to outside. Okay, pull it through. You want to leave a good length of yarn on the bottom so you're not struggling to tie it off on the inside. Okay? Then what you're going to do is bring it over the top, and you're going to insert it into that stitch on the other side, also halfway down the eye, back to the inside. Okay? Pull that. You don't want to pull it tight enough to where it's going to sink behind the safety eye, but you want it tight enough to where it won't slip over the front like that. So you just gotta kind of find that right tension. You're gonna need to also hold that starting yarn on the inside too, okay? So go ahead and just tighten that down. Okay, and then what you're gonna do is bring your needle back out that same place that you first put it out when you started this side. So it's gonna come right back out that same hole on the opposite side. Oops, I split my yarn there. Okay. Pull pull it out, and now you can kind of pull it a little bit tighter. Okay, and then we're going to go back in this one here, again on the opposite side. And this time you're going to bring the flap along the bottom. Like that. Okay, and there's her one little eye. So go ahead and repeat that on the other eye. I'm going to go ahead and tie this off on the inside and then snip it and repeat it on the other eye. Now we have completed her eyes. All right, so we have finished round 38. 38 is going to have 40 stitches. It's critical that you begin with 40 stitches, so make sure you count. And if you're off by a stitch, go ahead and just make an increase or a decrease towards the end there to make sure you've got 40. So what we're going to do for before we start round 39, which is where the upper tentacles begin, is we're going to place stitch markers. There's going to be 8 stitch markers that mark the stitch where you place your slip stitch and then chain for each of the 8 tentacles. So go ahead and grab 8 stitch markers. And this is, I just marked where I left off on round 38, so that stitch marker isn't included in what we're doing now. It's just keeping my working yarn in place. So this was the last stitch we made for 38. So starting in the very next stitch, which would be the first stitch that you would work if you were, going on and making a next round, you're gonna place your very first stitch marker in that spot. Maybe I'll zoom in just a little bit for this. So here's the very first stitch of what would be the next round. So you're gonna place your first stitch marker there. And each stitch marker is going to be spaced by 4. So you'll count 4 in between, and then in the 5th one, you'll place another stitch marker. So we've got 40 stitches divided by 8 is 5. So basically every 5th stitch, okay? So we've got 1 here. We're counting over 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're putting that one there. So you have 4 stitches in between, and then the stitch marker goes in the 5th. Okay, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so take your stitch markers and continue that all the way around. I'm placing my last one right here, and then you'll have 4 left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then that would have been 5. So they're all spaced with 4 in between. Okay, so now you are all set up to begin round 39, and that is where we will go now. So I will go ahead and take out my stitch marker where I left off on round 38. Okay. So what you're going to be doing for this round is every time you get to a stitch marker, you're going to place a slip stitch, and then you're going to chain 31. So let's go ahead and do the first tentacle here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that out. I'm gonna place a slip stitch in that stitch. Okay, so that stitch will no longer be worked. And then we're going to chain 31. So 1, 2, 8, 29, 30, 31. Okay, so this is again what you're going to be doing for every single tentacle, every single time you reach a stitch marker. And then we are going to single crochet back down the chain. We're going to single crochet into the back bumps. So you're going to skip that very first bump that acts as our turning chain. We're going to skip that very first chain, and we're going to crochet in the back bumps all the way back down to the body or the head of the octopus. So you're going to have 30 single crochets going back down. Okay, so 2, 3, 3, 29 and 30. All right, so what I'm gonna do really quick before we move on, I should have told you that it might be helpful to mark that very first stitch that you made from the top of your chain with a stitch marker. I'm gonna go ahead and do that at the tip of every single one of my tentacles, because when you're coming back around, it's gonna be really important to identify that stitch as you take off and extend it for round 40 in the next round that we're gonna do. So I apologize that I didn't note that then. Okay, so we've just finished crocheting back down our chain. We've got 30 single crochets back down the chain. And then what we're going to do is single crochet in those next 4 stitches that separate each of the tentacles where we placed our stitch markers. Okay, so 1, that kind of connects it back down to the body. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we're back to our next stitch marker for our second tentacle. So go ahead and take that out. Place a slip stitch in that stitch. And here we go again for the second tentacle. So chain 31. 1, 2, 3, 4, 30, 31. Making our way back down that chain. We are skipping that very first back bump, and we're gonna start in this second back bump and single crochet through each of those 30 chains all the way back down to the body. So I will meet you there. I'm gonna go ahead and place that stitch marker in that first stitch. And make my way back down 30 single crochets, back down the chain, back down to the head of, I think I said body again, back down to the head of the octopus. Head and body, I guess, is kind of the same thing, isn't it? 29, 30. All right, so here we are again. Back to the 4 stitches before we're gonna make our next tentacle. So single crochet in those next 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're up to our next stitch marker. I wanted to give you another little tip that will help you prepare for round 40. When you're going around, you remember your slip stitches that you're making in each of the stitches where you're beginning your chain for your tentacle. Those slip stitches will not be worked in again. So my recommendation is you make them nice and tight before you begin your chain so that they're almost hidden so that you're not confused as you go back around. So on my last one here, I went ahead and I marked this so that I could show you a little bit closer up what it looks like. Okay, so you've got these 2 blue stitch markers I have placed in stitches that will actually be worked in. Okay, so this 1, 2, 3, 4, this darker blue stitch marker is marking that 4th stitch that separates the 2 tentacles. All right, this next little one in between is your slip stitch that you made right before you made your chain of 31. That one will not be worked in as you come around for your next round, for round 40. Okay, this was your first chain where this light blue marker is. You will work into that one. So your slip stitch, you can, if it ends up being a little loose, like I was kind of comparing back on this one, like this one, for example, that's my slip stitch, and it almost looks like a stitch that I'm gonna work in because I just didn't do it quite tight enough. So when I come in, I'm gonna skip that one. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 that I'm gonna work in between my 2 tentacles, skipping the slip stitch, and then counting straight away up the side of the chain as I come around for my next round for the tentacles. Okay, so I hope that that's helpful. We're skipping the slip stitch. So I want to just show you, I'm going to do it nice and tight before I chain on my next one here, so that it's much smaller and easier to see as you come around. So if I slip stitch, just pulling it really tight right now, my tension before I even yarn over, pulling through, and just tighten that up as much as you can. So now when I start my chain, 1, 2, 3, it's just a really tiny little stitch right there. Whoop. Okay, so even if it's helpful to mark it so you know to skip it, whatever is helpful for you. But if you start working in there, the counts on your tentacles are gonna get all off. And you do, if you've looked ahead, get to the point where you're working like over 1,000 stitches in the next round. So you don't wanna mess that up, okay? So now I will leave you to finish noting your slip stitches, and I will meet you at the end of this round. All right, I have finished my round 39. So let's take a look at that together. So now we've got 8 stubby little tentacles. All right, so at this point, I would double check and highly recommend that you have the tips stitch marked. So at the end, like we did, at the end of your 30 stitches that you made, or your 30 stitches that you made coming back down, that you mark that very first one with a stitch marker, because it can get confusing, because this here is your turning chain that you made before you came back down, and it can kind of be disguised as your first stitch. So I don't know, if you're really good about that, then no problem, but it does get really frustrating if your stitch count gets off on this next round. So let's go ahead and jump into round 40. So let me give you a little background on what we're going to be doing. So what we're doing is we are now going around all of the tentacles. Should probably zoom out a little bit here. We're going to be going around all the tentacles, extending them and widening them. So we're going to be going up the 30 chains, and then from the tip of the chain we are extending the tentacle by 40 using foundation single crochets, and then we're coming back down the foundation single crochet 40, back down the 30 single crochets on the chain, and across the 4 in between each. Okay, and that is your repeat 8 times. Okay, so again, we're going up 30, we're extending it by 40 with foundation single crochets, coming back down and coming back down the chain and going across the 4. All right, so we're doing that 8 times. So at the end of this round, you're going to have, of this last round, rather, round 39, you're going to have 272 stitches. I did not count the 31 chains as stitches. I'm only counting the 4 in between each and the 30 single crochets you made back down the chain. Okay, so the actual single crochet count is 272. All right, so double check if you'd like or whatnot, but let's go ahead and get cracking on round 40. Okay, so I am going to pick right up where I left off. Okay, and again, another little reminder that what we're looking at here, let me zoom back in. What we're looking at here is this very next little one is that slip stitch, the very first stitch that we made of round 39, which is a slip stitch. And we are skipping that little guy at the beginning of every single one of the tentacles. Okay, so we're going straight in. It kind of looks like kind of a hole right there. That's going to be your first stitch. That's the first chain of each tentacle. All right, so going straight in for 1. I always just stitch mark the first row or the first stitch of every round. Just, I don't know, keeps me on track. Okay, so that's 1. And then we're going to be going 30 all the way up to the tip of this tentacle. Okay, so I will let you get cracking at that, and I will meet you at the end of 30 coming up the side of this tentacle, which you're basically crocheting into the chain that you made during the last round. Okay, so that's 2, 3, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, so I've got 30 coming up. Now we are going to extend this tentacle to make it a little bit longer, and we're doing that by making 40 foundation single crochets. Okay, so a little bit of a sub-tutorial here. If you already know how to do a foundation single crochet, you can tune me out if you have to. But if you haven't, normally what you do when you begin a foundation single crochet, which is basically making your chain and your first row of single crochet at the same time, what you do when you start from scratch, if it's the first thing you're doing after you slip knot on your hook, is you chain 2, and then you do your first single crochet back into that first chain that you made. But this time we don't have to do that because we already have stitches and we already have work that we've begun doing. So we're actually going to begin making our foundation single crochet right into that last stitch that we just made, that 30th stitch. Okay, so this is where stitch marking things become important. Okay, so you're just leaving this one here for now. You're not doing anything with that. You're going to rejoin the extension of the tentacle back down in that stitch. Okay, so to begin your first foundation single crochet, what you're going to be doing is going straight into that stitch that you just made. It's almost like you're making an increase, but that's not how it's going to end up. So place your hook like so, right back into that stitch that you just made, and yarn over and pull up. Okay, and rather than completing your single crochet by yarning over and pulling through both loops, you're going to yarn over and pull through one loop, which is creating your chain on the bottom, and then yarn over and pull through 2, which creates your single crochet. Okay, so now we've got our first foundation single crochet right there, and then if you flip it over, you've got your chain that you just made on the back, which is those 2 loops right there. And you're going to use those 2 loops to make your next foundation single crochet. Okay, so that was 1. So to make your second one, you take your hook and you go under both of those loops on the back. So you're kind of flipping it upside down. You're placing your hook through both of those loops underneath. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 1. Yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so now you've got your first 2 single crochets here, and then you've got 2 chains on the back. Okay, before we get any farther, I highly recommend taking another stitch marker and marking that first chain that you made, which is right underneath that very first foundation single crochet. Okay, you are going to be crocheting back down your foundation single crochet, and it can be really easy to miss that last one by the time you're coming back down. It can be really easy to miss that last one and go just into this one and then reconnect back down to your tentacle here. Okay, so I just do. I mean, it's up to you, but that is my recommendation. Okay, so that is 2 foundation single crochets. Let me do a couple more with you here and then I'll let you on your way. So again, you're sort of flipping it over. You're inserting your hook underneath those 2 loops from that last one that you just made. Yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so just carry on through both of those loops underneath. Yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so you're gonna do 40. If you wanna mark that first stitch on the front, you can. Just stitch it up. Just however many stitch markers you need to make sure your stitch count stays right. It will just really save you a lot of grief later with these little tentacles. Okay, so go ahead and plug away, making 40 foundation single crochets, and I will meet you at the end of that batch of stitches. All right, I am reaching the end of my batch of foundation single crochets. Got 2 more to do. So that was 38. That is 39. And this is my 40th. Okay. So that's our extended tentacle here. Okay. Looks a little bit wonky right now, but it'll all come together as you come around the other side of it. Okay. So we've got a long tentacle. Now, straight away, we're going to start crocheting back down the other side of it. Okay, back down the chain side of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to crochet down 40 chains. Okay, so 40 single crochets down, which is going to bring you back down here where we started to begin the extension. Okay, the 40th one is going to be placed in that very first chain you made of the foundation single crochet. And then your very next one is going to be made straight into the very first stitch of the other side of round 39. Sorry if that sounded confusing, but basically when you come back down to this transition, you'll be placing your single crochet where you have this stitch marker, and your very next single crochet will be going in this stitch marker, which is the tip of the first little stumpy tentacles. Okay, so we're going to start straight away, so don't chain or anything. You're going to go just as if you were making a another foundation single crochet under that chain right there. You're just going to make a regular single crochet, which would be the very tip of your tentacle. Okay, so go ahead and make a single crochet. I am, you guessed it, going to mark that. At this point, I'm marking these because eventually you're going to need to be matching up the tip of the top part of the tentacle with the base part of the tentacle where the suction cups are. And it's a lot easier for me to match everything up properly if I remember where the tip of each one was, because the tip is going to want to match up with the tip of the other part. All right, so that's the very first one coming back down the foundation single crochet chain. Okay, so go ahead and make your way back down. There's 2. Okay, so you're going to be making 40 single crochets back down, and I will meet you at this transition part of the tentacle. All right, I am about to rejoin the extended part of the tentacle with my round 39 tentacle here. Okay, I'm at that chain that I marked, so I'll go ahead and take out my stitch marker now. Make my single crochet in that chain. And then my very next single crochet is going to skip this little gap here, and it's going to be made right into this stitch marker, which is the tip of the tentacle from round 39. Okay, so I will just go straight into that stitch. Okay, and carry on down that side of the tentacle. And that's going to be 30 stitches back down to this part and 4 stitches across the body here. So I will go ahead and meet you back down there so that we can take a look at the completed full tentacle. And I'm not going to put you through all of that again, but we'll just meet you there, and we'll take a look at what this looks like. So I'm going to continue down my chain. So basically this final line of single crochets from the very tip, back down the foundation single crochet, back down the original part of the tentacle, and then across these 4 stitches in between before you start this next one. That's going to be a total of 74 stitches. So you have 40 from the foundation single crochet, 30 from the first part of the tentacle, and 4 from in between. Okay, so I will meet you back down at the end of this row here. All right, I am making it back down to the body here. Single crocheting in those last 4 stitches before I start my next tentacle. Okay, let's take a look at what we've got here. Here it is. So there is your extended tentacle. Okay, great job. That is the hardest part. You're gonna get on a roll now as you repeat that all the way around with all 8 tentacles. Okay, I will meet you at the end of round 40 where you have all of the upper tentacles completed, and we'll take a look at how Ingrid is coming together at that point. All right, here we are at the end of round 40. So at the end of round 40, you're going to have 1,152 stitches. That's a big, long round. All right, so she's got some really fun, long tentacles. So what we're going to do for round 41, I'm just going to go over it with you real quickly, because if you look at the pattern there, it's very straightforward. But I just wanted to give you a visual. Let me get my yarn out of the way here. All we're going to do with the repeats, the 8 tentacles as we go around for round 41, is you are going to be, this was my last stitch that I just made of round 40. This was my first stitch of my last round. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that out now. You are going to crochet your way all the way up, around the tip, back down, 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 down. And then the only kind of fancy thing you're doing on this round is you are going to be decreasing these 4 stitches in between down to 2 stitches. And the reason why I did it that way is it ends up being a lot of fabric in the middle of her tentacles by the time you're done with this round. And then you're also doing your round all the way around when you're connecting the base to the top. You just get a lot of material going on. So you're going to go up and around the tentacle, and then when you get down to these 4 stitches in between each of the tentacles, you're going to decrease these 2 together, and you're going to decrease these 2 together. All right, I'm going to let you off on your way to do that. I don't think we need to do that together. All right, so now we are going to get going on the base. So I have just completed the beak, and then from the beak, we are going to be creating the base part of the tentacles that have the suction cups on them. So I have 40 stitches around. Again, this is going to become familiar to you, or is going to look familiar to you. And I'm pulling out 8 stitch markers to mark where I'm going to be doing the tentacles. So the base is going to branch out 8 tentacles just like you did off of the head, and they're going to be done in the exact same way, the first part of them anyway. So we're going to start with our stitch markers, and we're going to space them by 4 stitches in between. So you're going to be placing a stitch marker every 5 stitches, but you're going to place the first one here in that very first available stitch after you have completed round 9 of the beak there. So 1, and then we're counting 4 in between, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then in the 5th one, we've got a stitch marker. Okay, we're gonna make our way around, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one. Okay, we're gonna do that all the way around for all 8. Okay, placing our last stitch marker there. And then we've got 4 left, 1, 2, 3, 4. So each of our tentacles are spaced by 4 stitches again. Okay, so round 10 of the base is the exact same as round 39 of the upper part of the tentacles that we did together. All right, so where the stitch marker is, we place a slip stitch, and then we're going to chain 31, and then we will single crochet 30 back down to the base again. So I'm just going to do one quickly together with you. I'm not going to take a bunch of time on this since we already did it with the upper part, but 1, 2, 3. All right, I am about to rejoin round 10 of the base or the beak, doing my last single crochet down that chain. Okay, and I'm going to be single crocheting in the next 4 along round 10 of the base. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you're going to repeat that 8 times. You're going to end up with 8 tentacles at the end of this round. So I will meet you there. All right, we have got our first round of tentacles for the base complete. Here they all are, 8 little stubby tentacles for the base, okay? So now we are going to begin round 11, and we're going to bobble our way around, creating all the suction cups. So get your next color ready. I'm using this kind of dark blue color for my bobble suction cups. Pick up where we left off. And what we're going to be doing, just to kind of give you an outline, is we are going to, on each of the tentacles, it's the same thing for all of them. So we're going to be having one big long repeat row that you're going to do the same thing 8 times. And what the overview of that row is we are going to bobble our way up one side. Then, just like we extended the tentacle on the top part of the tentacles, we are going to foundation single crochet 40. We're not going to be doing any bobbles along there. Then as we turn and make our way back down the extension and back down to the body, we'll be bobbling our way all the way back down, okay? With a bobble and then 4 single crochets, a bobble, 4 single crochets, okay? So let's go ahead and get going. I will show it to you. And you're going to repeat it all the way around. Okay, so off we go. So 5 single crochets first. 1, and I'm going to mark that first one. 2, just in case. 3, 4, okay, and then this is 5, and we're going to be color changing now. So before we complete our 5th stitch there, our next stitch is the bobble. We want to do the bobble in our contrast color. So you always change colors with the final pull through of your new color. Okay, to set us up. So that was 5. Okay, so now we're going to double crochet bobble in our next stitch. And in order to do that, you're going to yarn over, insert into that next stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And we're gonna do that 4 times altogether. So that was 1. So we're gonna yarn over, insert into that same stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 for 2. Yarn over again, insert into that same stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. That was the 3rd time. And 1 more time into that same stitch. Yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, and now we'll yarn over. This might get a little bit fiddly, but again, we're switching now. As we're completing our bobble, we're switching back. So before we pull through all of them, our final pull through is going to be in our tentacle color again, okay? So we're dropping the darker blue and we're yarning over and pulling through all of those in our new color, okay? And then we're straight away going to start the first of 4 single crochets in those next 4, okay? So as you make that first one, which kind of closes that bobble, it's gonna wanna bobble toward like the wrong way, okay? So just kind of start it real loosely, pull up your loop and push that bobble towards you. You want this, you are working on the right side right now, so you want that bobble to pop out towards you, okay? So then once you kind of have that popping the right way, then what you can do is pull your single crochet. I lost it off my hook there. You can pull your single crochet and finish that, bind it. Okay, so for the first of the 4. So there's 1 single crochet, 2, 3. Okay, we're making our 4th before our next bobble. So again, we're going to be pulling through with our suction cup color. This is the back. This is going to be on the inside of your octopus. You're not going to see it. So I do not tie off my color every time. I just carry it along the back. The little bobbles are close enough together that does not give me trouble. It's just way too much for me to tie off every time. If you want, you can snip it and tie off and start again, but I like the tension it keeps if I just carry it along. Okay, so I'm pulling through, so that was my 4th single crochet. So here we go for a bobble again. Yarn over, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, yarn over to that same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 for the second. Okay, do that again 2 more times. 2. All right, so now we are going to be pulling through our final stitch. So we're dropping the suction cup color, pulling back in the tentacle color, yarning over, doing our final loop, and then taking our first single crochet again. Okay, we're wanting to make sure that it's bobbling towards you, so we're bringing that single crochet around to the back. We're trying to complete it nice and tight on the back. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're on our 4th one, so we're switching back to our suction cup color. We're dropping that. Okay, bringing in the darker color. We're completing our single crochet with that color. Okay, let's do one more bobble together and then I'll let you finish this, okay? So yarning over, going right into that next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. 2. 3. 4. Okay, dropping that color, bringing back up the section color, yarn over, pull through all of them. Okay, so go ahead and repeat that. So that was the 3rd one. You're going to be repeating that 5. So you're going to make 5 section cups along this line. So I will meet you at the end of your little row here. All right, I am on my last of my 4 stitches here after my bobble. Okay, so at this point, you've got your 5 bubbles, and you can tie off and snip this last one because you're going to pick up and start bobbling again at the end of your foundation single crochet. Okay, so at this point, again, I'm not going to go over it again on how to do the foundation single crochet, but you're going to branch off and you're going to extend this tentacle by 40 stitches by making 40 foundation single crochets. So I will do that straight away right here, and I will meet you at the top of those 40 foundation single crochets. Right, so we've got our 40 foundation single crochets that are extending this tentacle. Okay, so it's now 70 long. We've got 40 here and I got 30 here. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna bobble our way back down this part of the chain, and then we're gonna bobble our way back down this part, reconnect down here to the beak, and repeat it again 8 times, okay? So the pattern coming back down, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by placing 2 single crochets. Okay, we're gonna start straight away, coming back down the other side of this foundation single crochet. So we're going into the chains on this side, okay? So straight away, we're gonna do 2 single crochets. And this next one is going to be a bobble. So before we finish that second one, we're gonna change our color. We're gonna bring in our suction cup color. Okay, and pull through on that stitch. All right. I'm also gonna mark the tip of my tentacle here so I can match that up with the upper part that we did in purple. All right, so now we're gonna do a bobble stitch in this next stitch where you're going to single crochet 4, bobble, single crochet 4, bobble, okay? And we're gonna go all the way back down that same pattern, connecting back up with this part of the tentacle in the same way that we connected with the upper part. We're continuing with the bobbles and the single crochets all the way back down. So there's gonna be 14 bobbles. Okay, guys, here we are at the end of the first tentacle, the base tentacle. Let's take a look. We have bobbled. We are now expert bobblers. Okay, I'm gonna take that out. I had marked my first foundation single crochet. Here we are. That's cute. All right, so that's what you're gonna repeat all the way around each of the 8 tentacles. All right, and so I will let you get at it. Refer back to this if you need help, but I will meet you around at the very place that we started, right here. All right, I'll see you there. So first of all, congratulations are in order for completing round 11. You are an expert bobbler. I just think it's impossible that you'll ever forget how to bobble from this point forward. So well done, because that, my friends, is a lot of bobbling and a lot of stitches. So totally worth it. It is fun. You get into a flow. But yes, so congratulations. Second of all, I know that I originally told you I was going to meet you at the end of that round. And then I realized that round 12, which I am actually working on right now, round 12 of the base is the exact same pattern as round 41 of the upper part of the tentacles, which we already covered. So I just went ahead and went for it. So I am actually coming down to my last tentacle for round 12 of the base. So I'm a little bit ahead of where I said I was gonna meet you back. So I'm sorry about that, but I knew you had it handled because you already did the top. All right, so I am down, that's the last stitch on my tentacle there. So I'm down to my, my 4 stitches in between. So I'm gonna go ahead and decrease those 4 down to 2. So decrease those 2 together and decrease those 2 together. Check it out. So pretty. These colors are very pretty together. So there is your base. So now we'll get ready to attach the base to the top. So what you're gonna do, your final little step is you're gonna pop the beak to the inside because this is gonna be the outside. So you want your beak going in. So just pop it inside out, okay? That's the beak. So that'll be on the inside of the octopus, and this is where she eats. All right, so there you have it. There's your base. So let's go ahead and get ready to attach the 2 together. All right, we are moving right along. So deep breath. Okay, we are almost done. So we've got Ingrid, we got her top part, and we've got the base and the suction section cups all done. So now our task is to join these. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are going to line up tentacle for tentacle. Okay, I've already gone through and I've dealt with all of my ends and just tied them off. No big deal. We're not going to see the insides. So what I recommend doing, you can do it whatever way feels most natural to you, but what I do when I line these up is I like to stitch mark the 2 decreases that I made in between. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to kind of create a stopping point for me as I do one tentacle at a time to sort of do an audit and make sure my stitch counts are right. And so if they're off by 1 or 2, it will be easy for me to make that correction per, gap in between tentacle rather than like, oh my gosh, I was 1 stitch off on every tentacle on the base, but I did it correctly on the top, and now all of a sudden I'm 8 stitches off at the end, and I have like this really big weird gap that now there's this issue closing at the very, very end, and wouldn't that just be heartbreaking? So I like to make all my little 1 to 2 stitch corrections in the gaps as we go along, because it's just no big deal at that point, okay? So I'm going to take lots of stitch markers, and I'm going to go through, as I line these up, I am going to mark those 2 in between. If you want to go ahead and mark the tips as well or anywhere along, however often you want to kind of do an audit and make sure that your stitch counts are right, that's totally up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and get going on that right now. And once I have these all connected, we will start to join. And I will just make a note too that you're not stuffing her head yet. You don't need to stuff it until you have, about 3 tentacles left at the end of joining so that you have a hole. I mean, you can start to stuff her, but she can get kind of bobble-headed if you try to do it now, and then you've got stuffing falling out and whatnot. So, okay, so go ahead and start joining the top and the base, and I will see you after you do that. All right, now that we have joined the top and the base together with our stitch markers, and I recommend using locking stitch markers because things do get, there's a lot of flopsy-mopsy going around as you're dealing with her tentacles. Now that we have done that, I am going to go ahead and get you started off to show you how we're going to be joining these, the method which we're going to use to crochet the top and the bottom together. And then once you're off and away on that, I'm going to meet you around the other side of the first tentacle after we join it, so I can give you a couple tips on how to correct issues with stitch counts in case that's happening as you go along. Just a quick, easy way to make a decrease or an increase if you have to correct that. All right, so I went ahead and just left where I'm gonna pick up where I left off with my purple ball after completing the final round of the top. And I've marked my very first stitch that I'm gonna make here, which would be the first stitch coming up the tentacle, the first tentacle, okay? I'm gonna take that stitch marker out. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and start straight away. And what you're going to be doing is you are going to be joining by single crocheting through both loops of the top and the bottom together, just like so. So you're going to insert your hook under the next stitch, both loops, and under the 2 stitches adjacent to it from the base, okay? And pull up a loop and just complete your single crochet. Okay, so you're going to just continue in this manner all the way around your octopus. I love this round. It is so satisfying because it's like, oh my gosh, you really see her coming together. Okay, so you're just going around and around. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you be off on your way, and then like I said, just kind of as a tip, I'm gonna meet you in the gap on this opposite side, and we'll see if I've made any mistakes in my stitch count. And if I have, I will show you how to correct them. And if I haven't, I will still show you how to correct them. You can make a mistake on purpose so that I can show you how to correct it. And hopefully that will be a helpful tip for you to avoid any kind of frustration as you're going along with all of these thousands of stitches. All right, so I will meet you on the other side of this tentacle. All right, I'm coming back down the first tentacle, joining the first tentacle. I'm coming back down to the gap before the next one. We're about to find out if I made any errors in my stitch count, and it does not look like I did. Okay, so I'm going to show you anyways how to make a correction in case you get to this point and all of a sudden you find out, let me zoom in a little. And all of a sudden you find out, oh no, I have 2 purples left and only 1 blue. All right, let me show you how to correct that really quick. I'm gonna take these out. Okay, so for example, if yours looks like something like that, and you only have 1 blue left, but you have 2 purples, all you need to do is make a decrease into that blue stitch. Okay, so what you do is you're moving right along. Go ahead and just like you're going to make your next single crochet, those 2 together, go ahead and pull up a loop, and then immediately into the purple that you want to decrease, and then back into that same 1 blue stitch. Pull up and decrease those together. Okay, so that way you're now corrected. You're back on track with your next 2 together, 1 on 1. And if that happens again, you know, and it may not, it may just be that 1 tentacle, that 1 blue, you didn't have another, you know, enough stitches, or your purple, you added a stitch somewhere. So it's no big deal. Now, if it was opposite, for example, and you had an extra blue and only 1 purple, it would be similar. But in this event, you would be pushing your hook through the purple and through that next blue. Pull up a loop. Okay, I'm sorry. In that event, you'd be going through the purple and through the blue, and you'd be pulling through only the blue and pushing straight into that next blue and pulling all the way back through and completing your stitch. So it's like decreasing again, but a little bit of a different technique. And then you're off and on your way, okay? So just to kind of help you avoid any kind of frustration. But here we've got our tentacle complete. Our very first one, totally complete. And that's so pretty. The rest of the joining is the exact same, just like you just joined. And just remember to stop short of joining your last few tentacles so that you can stuff her head. The sustainable stuffing that I am using for Ingrid is yarn snippets from the last several projects that I've made. So this is all your little odds and ends. These are from hanks, these are from, you know, tying off ends and all of it. So it's a great opportunity to think about different alternative ways that you can stuff your amigurumi other than using polyfill. It uses up absolutely every last bit of the yarn that you're purchasing. And again, it's helping you avoid using polyfill and allowing you to use a sustainable option instead. Oh my goodness, I'm making my final 2 stitches on Ingrid. Oh my goodness. This feels like such an accomplishment after all those tentacles. Woohoo! Oh my goodness, let's take a look at her. Aww, I have a few ends I need to weave in. Oh my goodness, she is so cute. Scroll out here. There she is. Okay, well, this is going to conclude this video tutorial. Her headband is pretty self-explanatory. There's some small little work, but there's nothing major in the way of like special techniques or anything that I feel like you can't do without me. So I really hope this tutorial was helpful for you. And that you enjoyed making Ingrid. If so, please like this video and make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to join our website, offthebeatenhook.com, for lots of free patterns, video tutorials, and tons of downloadable essential crochet resources. Happy hooking!